the stream should be live. If you're watching the VOD, you might want to skip ahead 2 minutes in or so, because I still have to get set up by doing a Discord announcement and all of that good stuff. So just bear with me for a few moments. It's freaking burning in this room. Alright, so Discord announcement is up. I'm not gonna close Discord unless I start getting pop-ups that like annoy me. But for now we should be more or less good to go. I'll check the volume of the stream and then I'll start. The Elgato shouldn't be too loud. I don't know if I'm clear enough, but I should be. I moved the mic a little bit closer. And let's continue. Blackberry Honey. I think this is like the end of Blackberry Honey, because there are a few trophies to go and the percentages of gamers who've gotten those trophies are like pretty much identical. So I think the trophies are just gonna roll in from this point as they kind of were last stream where I got 2 trophies. So let's go. Taohau. But you can't have a conversation about the simplest of things. You can't even complain about the weather. So for those who weren't here last time, right now Taohau is talking to her mom about the fact that her mother and father don't really speak the same language, because he's from some part of Asia and the mom is from some part of Europe, presumably. And the father is also away a lot because he's a sailor. So her mom and father are in love, but they kind of don't share much in common. So it's kind of a difficult but rewarding romance. And Tahua just sees it as challenging at the moment. What do you even talk about? What else is there to talk about? You raise a good point, little Tao, but love isn't very logical. I think it's stupid. You'll understand when you get older. I don't think I want to. So you're going to be an unmarried maid forever? I'm considering it. Don't be daft, you're still young. You have all the time in the world. If I ever looked at a man the way you look at father, I'd have to gut myself. Now, missus, if I hadn't married your father, you wouldn't even be alive. I'll be having less of your cheek, thank you very much. She had a point. Though my parents' relationship was a continuing source of communal gossip, there was no doubt their love was true. If it wasn't, they wouldn't have been able to sire a daughter between them. Me. I inherited most of my looks from my father, but my eyes from my mother. The other children in the neighborhood used to tease me, but my mother said I was beautiful. She said I was her darling, her little peach blossom. And if my peers thought I looked strange, they were dreadfully unimaginative and boring. I thought this was quite a thing for my mother to say, as her imagination stopped dead at the signs that bade you entry to London. But I didn't actually say that. In retrospect, I think that proves just how much my mother loved my father. She loved him so dearly that this serious, no-nonsense, fiercely patriotic woman could put aside her devotion to the Queen and dote upon her peculiar, only half-English daughter. I spent most of my childhood with my mother. I didn't see my father that often. He was out at sea for months on end, and when he came back, it was only for a handful of weeks. He's a hazy figure in my mind and didn't leave much of an impression, particularly given he was so quiet. When he was around, we rarely had cause to speak to one another, and I can count the number of times he spoke to me in English on one hand. Maybe he was embarrassed. He had been married to my mother, an out-and-out Englishwoman, for 8 years at this point, and though he picked up enough of the language to have a conversation, he sometimes got the words mixed up. He did, however, converse with me in Mandarin. He told me about some of my family back in China, and his sister Mei Li, who had stolen sweet potatoes from the farmer's field in her youth, and his aunt Ji, who had such pretty feet she had been courted by the son of a nobleman, and his mother Lan, who had wanted grandchildren for years and would be so happy to know that I existed. Their little peach blossom. Their miracle child. And then my father died when I was 9, and nobody spoke to me in Mandarin after that. I can't speak any Mandarin myself, but I must have been able to when I was younger, because I could more or less understand what my father told me. Bits and pieces here and there. Sometimes I would even reply in turn. Our conversations were never very long, and I think I must have made a lot of mistakes because my father would smile and look bemused more often than not. But I made an effort. I tried. And when I tried, I could always make him understand. But I don't remember a thing now. All the words I used to know have disappeared. That's what happens when you live in England your whole life. You forget who you are, and things, even the important things, start to slip away. The only Mandarin I can remember now is my own name. Tahua, Peach Blossom. My mother was distraught when my father died. She had loved him a lot. She loved him more than I ever did, and more than I ever could understand. I don't think I was very supportive. Though I was only 9 years of age, I like to think I was more mature than I really was. I wasn't that upset about my father's death myself, and I thought it was very smart and clever for not being in floods of tears. Like my poor mother. I used to talk to her like a tiny schoolmistress and say, oh, all kinds of thoughtless things. Despite being so young, I was horribly blunt. This is kind of like the little girl from, the MILF visual novel that I was streaming, also very blunt. Why are you so sad? He was never around much anyway, and you didn't seem that upset about it then. Because I always knew he was going to come back. Not for months and months. Not for months and months, no, but I knew he would return eventually, and that was enough. I trusted him, I loved him, and now... But I never figured out what would happen now, because she started to cry. I didn't know what to say, so I gave my mother a hug and tried to sing her something to cheer her up. It wasn't one of the Chinese lullabies my father had sung me, because in 2 weeks I had already forgotten everything, but something more familiar. Probably Juanita, though I suppose it doesn't matter what I sang. It did make a difference. My father was still dead, my mother continued to cry, and that was just how my life went. Then, after mourning for a couple of weeks, my mother decided a change was in order. She said, now that father was dead, she could no longer continue to work in the dingy tavern by the docks. I don't want to meet any more sailors, she told me. It would hurt too much. I think what she really meant was, it would hurt too much if she happened to meet more men who looked like my father. More and more sailors from the Orient were coming to our docks, and though Asian men had been a rarity in London only a decade hence, they were not exactly commonplace, but they were no longer so very few and far between. It must have been painful for my mother. Whenever she saw an Asian man about the docks, she would hold her hands in prayer and hope that it might be my father. Returned from his unmarked grave in the middle of the ocean, but it never was. It wasn't possible. And so her hopes faded. With a sorely hurt heart, she had to leave. My mother, who's always been strong-willed even in the face of despair, decided to seek employment elsewhere, and that's when I met Lady Whittier. I lurk, be playing Lost Judgment. Enjoy Lost Judgment, XYZ, glad you finally got it. Lady Whittier, or Pamela as she asked me to call her, but I never did, was a kindly old woman who lived in Richmond. Her family had been a wealthy one, but a handful of grandfathers and great-grandfathers with gambling problems had frittered most of their money away. Lady Whittier was by no means poor, but she lived a humble life for a woman who bore the title of a lady. Her home was a modest one, and she kept only a handful of servants. Perhaps you could call her a second or third class lady, but she was always first class to me. My mother began to work as a housemaid for Lady Whittier. She was good at her job. She was a hard worker, and Lady Whittier never complained about her. Then again, I rarely heard Lady Whittier complain about anything. She was the sort of woman who would try to find the good in everything and everyone. It was this attitude of hers which probably led to the furthering decline of her family. But that is a story for later. How could I judge her when her kindness afforded me so many opportunities? My mother took me to work with her, you see. This was an unusual thing for a maid to do. And perhaps it was overstepping the boundaries, but she did so all the same. My mother had become exceedingly concerned over my welfare following the death of my father. And when she went to work, leaving me home alone, it was always with a dreadful amount of anxiety. You will go to bed early, won't you? Draw the curtains, keep the lights off, and if somebody knocks at the door, I won't go off with any strange men, I promise. I thought my mother's concern was stifling, and I resented that she always went through this performance with me before she left for work. Did she think I was stupid? I might have been a young girl, but I was sensible. I could take care of myself. I told my mother as much when she first asked me to accompany her to Lady Whittier's. I can't, I'm not the one working as a maid, you are. But you're my daughter, I can't leave you at home on your own. You did when you worked at the tavern. That was different, the tavern wasn't so far away from our home. And I still didn't like to leave you. That never bothered you before father died, I was alone then too. It just isn't the same, now stop arguing and come along. I remember frowning, staring at my mother with challenging eyes. I was at a difficult age, though you'd probably say I've always been difficult, and I didn't back down during arguments. Not even with my own mother. But Lady Whittier... I've explained the situation to her. I'm sure there'll be no troubles if you sit quietly in a corner and don't break anything. As if I would, I'm not clumsy. Good, I told her that. I said you were a very well-behaved little girl, and she said she was very fond of little girls, particularly well-behaved ones. Why does this sound so sus? Mario Kart me, bruv? Bro, what's going on, holy years? Dang, you want a Mario Kart soon? You know, the only reason I haven't done a tournament recently, and I was legitimately thinking about this today, like, trying to organize a tournament, but the one thing that stops me from organizing a tournament, getting everyone on board, is that I feel like lately, the past few tournaments that we've done, like Mario Kart, and I think, maybe it was a Mahjong tournament, and Smash Ultimate, like the last few, we don't get enough people, we don't get 8, we're usually stuck with like 6 or 7, and there's always like 1 or 2 people that flake out, and I'm just tired of people flaking out last minute. Eventually, I probably will try to organize another tournament, but right now, it's just people's flakiness is killing me. But how have you been, Holy? What's going on? How's your summer going? Are you beating the heat? The freaking heat waves are insane. Lighting Spain, Texas, California, and other parts of the world on fire. It's bizarre. But I hope you're staying cool and hydrated some way, somehow. I know I already drank 2 bottles of water today myself. But yeah, what's going on? Let me know if you have questions about this game. It's a Yuri, as you can see in the title. 2 chicks falling in love. Right now we're getting the background story of one of the girls, Tahua. So she's half Asian and half English. And this is pretty much toward the end of the game, so we already had 2 kiss scenes and all of that. But yeah, we're getting the background story on how Taohau was raised. I feel you, broski, I don't blame you. Nah, bruv, I'm melting, but I'm surviving? Fuck. If it makes you feel a little bit better, I'm also melting right now, because I don't want to turn on the fan, because it's loud. But I'll hang in there, I've also been working this summer. I'm teaching summer school to 5th graders, doing the math and the English, reading and writing with them. And I walk to work, it's a 30-minute walk. And like the walk to and from home has been hot and kinda somewhat brutal. But I save money and I get exercise, so I don't want to trade that, you know what I mean? It's a win-win, in a way. I tried to reply, but I soon saw there was no point. If my mother had already asked for Lady Whittier's permission, I suppose it would be fine, but it didn't seem proper for a maid to bring her child along to her employer's house. Isn't that something they say? You shouldn't mix work and family? Or maybe it's beer and spirits. Well, let's set that aside for now. I was only a young child at the time, but I was serious about everything. I cared a great deal about good manners and making favorable first impressions. Maybe that's because ever since I can remember, people have always been judging me. Oh yeah, by the way, Holy, are you watching any new anime? Or playing any new games? What have you been up to in that regard? I've been watching 3, I think, anime from this season. So, okay, one of them is actually last season, but still finishing right now. A Couple of Cuckoos, which is a harem rom-com. It has hot waifus. And then I started 2 of the summer ones. One of them is My Stepmom's Daughter is My Ex. So you could tell a lot from that title. But yeah, that shit's good so far. And I've been watching a Yakuza's Guide to Babysitting, which is a lot of good, wholesome, cute shit. And I've started playing Scarlet Nexus, which I got for $30 around Christmas, and I didn't start playing it until this month, July. But Scarlet Nexus is pretty good. And I'm like really getting the hang of it now, because like some of the bosses were starting to get tough. But I've gotten the hang of it, so it's easy again. And yeah, it's just really good game. It's like a good story. The combat system is pretty decent, and the waifus are hot. My only complaint is like the exploration, I guess. I feel like they didn't do much in terms of like world design. Like when I'm running around places, it doesn't just seem that interesting to look at and look around, you know what I mean? But I'll still give it like an 8 out of 10, maybe 8.5 out of 10, you know, hot waifus and all that, why not? And if they made a second game, I'd probably be interested, not gonna lie. But I don't know how this one's gonna end. It'll probably wrap up pretty nicely. I don't know if it'll leave room for a second game, but we'll see. Gotta look on the bright side of things, get that workout and stay fit. Hell yeah, dude. I've been like eating really well. I mean, I'm like borderline underweight now. So I was like perfect weight before, and then I lost 20 pounds. So now I'm at the borderline between healthy weight and underweight, which is not great, but you know, I want to eat well anyway, and because I don't want to get like too much sugar, too much salt in my diet, because my parents, you know, they got diabetes and all that. So I wanna eat healthy, you know what I mean? But then the consequence is that I lose weight, and I don't want to lose weight. But anyway, I'm trying to eat healthy and exercise. That way I stay healthy completely, not just weight, but other things as well. But yeah. I just finished to watch Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think I watched an episode of that with my dad, because my dad was talking about how one of the actresses in it was also in something else that we were watching. I think it was Third Sister, but I'm not sure. As far as anime, I'm watching Fire Force and games. I'm kind of bouncing around between Lego Star Wars and Fatal Frame Black Maiden. Yes, I saw Fatal Frame Black Maiden is like on PS5 now. It was on Steam for like a long time now. But it's on console, and I'm like kinda interested in it. I also wanted to like stream last Halloween. I wanted to stream Fatal Frame 2 and 3. But for some reason my PlayStation 3 was having trouble with like the capture card setup, because it's supposed to work with a capture card and you should be able to stream PS3 games, but it wasn't working out. So I was gonna like buy it on the PlayStation Store, download it on PS3 for $10, stream it, but it just didn't work out. But yeah, Fatal Frame is a series that I have not played yet, but I've like watched the videos. My friend talks about it all the time. I want to get into it. How's that going for you so far? Have you played the previous titles? I cared a great deal about good manners and marking favorable first impressions. Maybe that's because, ever since I can remember, people have always been judging me. Even those who are too polite to say that they're judging me do it. That's how people are. Who is this funny-looking barbarian girl? She can't be English. That's what I imagine most people think when they first see me. Was my obsession with social etiquette a desire, perhaps to prove my Englishness to everyone? I didn't want others to sneer at or scorn me, but I've since stopped caring. It requires rather too much effort. In many cases, it's not possible to change what others think of you no matter how hard you try. Not if they have already resolved to dislike you. I was anxious about meeting Lady Whittier, though my mother had reassured me. I thought she would be a proud, haughty woman. Sitting in an overstuffed armchair that smelt of camphor and lavender, wearing expensive jewels, she was a lady after all. I thought being a lady sounded very proper indeed, and more than mildly terrifying. How could a lady let a girl like me into her home? If the dirty-faced children on the streets mocked me, she would surely be far worse. Maybe she liked little girls, particularly well-behaved ones, but would she like a little girl like me, in my ill-fitting clothes with my foreign features? I can remember the day my mother first took me to Lady Whittier's home vividly. She might as well have been taking me to see the Queen in Buckingham Palace. My mother combed my hair extensively until it crackled and then tied it back into 2 plaits. She made me wear my Sunday best, a demure green dress usually reserved for church, and even bought me new stockings. She attacked my church shoes too with spit and blacking until they shone so much I could almost see my face in them. Naturally, these preparations made me even more anxious. Stop shifting, my little peach blossom. I can't fix your hair if you keep moving like that. But it tickles. You never usually complain when I style your hair. You usually style it for church. Church and the rare times my father returned home, which was now a non-event. He would never be coming back. The sea had swallowed him. Yes, well, I want you to look presentable for Lady Whittier. I wouldn't want her to think we come from the slums. We might as well. Never played Fatal Frame before, but I watched a bunch of lore videos and stuff. I might see about playing the others, or if anything, just watch them. I do love the vibes. Yeah, I was trying to ask my friend, because he mentioned playing, like, all of the games, I guess, and because he has, like, he's like me, he has, like, every console pretty much. So, he was talking about how some games were, like, on PS2, some were on Xbox, some were on Wii, but he was able to buy them all. And I noticed that he spoke the most about Fatal Frame 2 and 3. And then I tried to ask him which one was his favorite, and he said, you know, they both have, like, strengths and weaknesses, so they're both kind of, like, even. Can't really pick a favorite. But I definitely recommend, at the very least, if you can, playing Fatal Frame 2 and 3, because those were the ones that he was, like, most hyped about. So I'm guessing those are 2 of the biggest, most popular ones in the series. Those were the ones I wanted to play, but I don't know. I'll see about potentially playing Black Maiden one day. I want to wait for the price to go down, because I think it's still around $60. It has gone down on Steam whenever they have big sales. It's usually like half off, I think. But I want to get it on console, so I'm gonna wait until there's like a good console sale, if anything. Are there any games that you're like looking to buy that you want to buy next? I want to buy Elden Ring. I think I'm gonna buy Elden Ring in like the next 3 weeks or so. I'm about to get a gift card soon, an Amazon gift card, because of like some survey that I did. And once I get the email with that gift card link, I'm gonna get Elden Ring. I might stream a little bit of it. I don't know. We'll see. I'm gonna do anime waifu tier maker stream probably this weekend, most likely Sunday. Heads up in case you want to stop by for that. I'll probably do it on YouTube. I know some of my viewers told me to give them a heads up before it happens, that way they could drop in because they want to be present for that. If there's any waifus that you want to recommend that I add to the tier maker because you want to see how I rank your waifus, let me know. I'll probably give an announcement for that later. That way other people could let me know as well. I could play those. I have a PS3. Yeah, dude. I still have my PS3 too. The only thing that I freaking hate about the PS3 though is that the controller keeps, like every controller that I have keeps getting messed up, right? And it's like this thing where, like, I guess the cursor, you would say, keeps flying back and forth across the PS3 icons. Like, it keeps, like, spazzing out. So I looked on YouTube, and they said that that is, like, a common problem, and that you fix it by, like, unscrewing your controller, and you put tape inside in this one spot to, like, keep something pressed down, basically. And then the controller works after that. But it seems like such a chore to, like, unscrew the PS3 controller and then hope that I screw it back correctly. Because I'm the type of person that I'm bad at building things with Legos. And I'm bad at, like, unscrewing things and then putting them back together. You know what I mean? I'm not really a builder. I'm not really an engineer. Like, I could deconstruct something, but then I can't reconstruct it. So I feel like I'm going to have to just buy a new controller if I want to play more of my PlayStation 3 games. And that just sucks, bro. Yeah, I'm tired of, like, buying a PlayStation 3 controller, like, once every 2 years, just so I could keep playing PS3 games. It's, like, feels bad, man. Yo, Saru, if you want, you know, me to add some of your waifus. I mean, I already know Nami and Eula are, like, your top 2. I can't add Eula because she's not an anime character. She's a game character, and Eula was already in my Genshin waifu tier maker video. Nami's already gonna be on there. That's like a given. But if there's any other waifus you want me to add to the waifu tier list stream, you know, you could always ping it to me in my Discord in the waifu channel, and I'll add them. Not really. I still gotta finish a lot of games like Resident Evil Village. Bro. Dang, I was watching my boy Sunset. I think you met Sunset, right? I know he participated in some of the tournaments, so you probably are familiar with him. I was watching him play the Resident Evil game, so I got to see like maybe 75% of it. I got to see pretty much all of the boss fights for sure. I'm not a big Resident Evil fan. Like I've like hung out with my friends while they play it, and I've seen like every Resident Evil game streamed. Like I watched Sunset stream Village. I watched my friend Jacob stream Resident Evil 3. I watched my friend Winter stream Resident Evil 1. I watched one of my friends stream Resident Evil 2. Like, I've seen every Resident Evil game. I watched Sunset stream Resident Evil 4. That one looked good. Resident Evil 4 looked cool. But then Sunset said that it was because originally it was supposed to be a Devil May Cry game. And I was like, that makes sense, because it looks a lot like Devil May Cry 1, which is kind of like what I thought was really cool about it. So, I don't know. I might one day play Resident Evil 4. I was like thinking about that, doing a stream of that like during Halloween someday. So, you never know. We might do that this coming year if I'm free, because, you know, the work life be killing me, bro. This teacher life is very demanding. But if I'm able to stream a little bit around Halloween, I might do Fatal Frame. I might do Resident Evil 4. That's like the only Resident Evil game that I'm like, hell yeah, this looks dope. I don't know why. Like, I mean, I know I'm not a zombie fan because it feels like the same shit every time. Like, that's one reason. It just never feels unique or original or exciting. It's just, oh, getting surrounded by a million zombies again. You know, it's the same vibe. It's the same vibe every time. I don't know. And then there's no waifus, right? Because if it's like waifu games are the same shit every time. But at least there's like a different design for the waifu for me to simp. At least I get to simp, you know what I mean? But I don't know. A lot of things these days is just the same shit every time. And it's you gotta really reach hard to find appreciation for what's unique about like entertainment these days. Unless, you know, there's a creator who just does a really good job at being like fucking amazing, like freaking Ichiro Oda with his One Piece. Like that shit is God-given. But anyway, my controller stopped working, so I got 2 knockoff controllers. Yeah, I got like kind of a knockoff controller, I think. It's called Voyee brand, Voyee. And let me tell you, it was working for a long time because I kept putting it back in the box when I wasn't using it. And then I stopped doing that and I let it get all dusty, and now it doesn't work anymore. So that's my fault for being a dick and not putting it back in the box like I was doing originally. Maybe if I kept putting it back in the box, it would still be working. But this shit don't work anymore, bro. And that's like my most recent PS3 controller. So I have like 2 PS3 controllers here that don't work. And then my dad has like, I think 3 or 4 controllers, and none of those were working for me. So it's just bad, bro. It's just bad. This comment was enough to earn me a rap atop of the head with the back of the hairbrush. It stung. Don't be like that, Taohau. Try and be more positive, please. Smile. I don't feel like smiling. You should smile all the same. Lady Whittier is being very considerate, letting you into her home. You should at least show your appreciation. And that's why I have to wear my church clothes? Is Lady Whittier even more important than God? Don't be ridiculous, Tahua. You're the one being ridiculous. This woman isn't a deity. Goodness, what am I going to do with you? Who in the world is this Joy Boy GU character? Bro, that's me. It's like they say at the end of the That's Raven song. That's me. Let me stay here, please. That isn't an option. Why not? What's going on, Ronzo? How you doing? How's your week going? Got any exciting weekend plans? So, I didn't post this in my Discord. And I should post it and share it with you guys. But I got exciting news now that we got at least 3 or 4 people here. XYZ is lurking. Holy Ears, Saru, and Renzo are chatting now. So let me give you 4 some exciting news. So I got paid, right? I got paid. Got my check. And, you know, you get a check and you want to celebrate a little, right? So I already told, like, Saru and a couple of other people that I got an anime figure. You know, that was part of my celebration. But the other thing that I did to celebrate today was I went to the bakery and I got a $24 chocolate mousse cheesecake. And it's fucking sexy, bro. Chocolate mousse cheesecake. Fuck yeah. So that's my news of the day. What's going on, Lord Trophies? We got a lot of stuff going on. Trophies, talking about my chocolate mousse cheesecake, talking about me ordering a expensive anime waifu figure. Also, for Ronzo and Lord, since you guys just got here, on Sunday I'll be streaming a waifu tier maker on YouTube. It's anime waifus only, not game waifus. So if there's any anime waifus you would like to recommend for the tier maker, you could ping me in my Discord in the general or waifu channels, and I will add the waifu of your recommendation. Because you're already nice and dressed up. Now hold still. My mother sighed and brushed out my half-finished braid. Then, in an act of divine punishment, she began to tie it even more tightly than before. She worked my hair with such fervor she hurt my scalp. You, young lady. She looped one section of her hair over another and third beneath that. Are acting like a little madam. Don't show me up. Don't you dare. And I didn't. I was so anxious I could hardly even breathe. So right now we're going to meet Lady Whittier. She's somewhat of a noble. And Taohau is afraid that Lady Whittier is going to use her Conqueror's Haki on her. But as soon as it transpired, my worries were in vain. Lady Whittier was nothing like I had imagined. She was not at all like God. In fact, she was far superior. Though my mother took me to church every Sunday, I had never once met him, despite dressing in my best clothes for his benefit. Lady Whittier, however, was a physical being I could put a face to. And what a dear face she had. Oh, little old lady, Obasan. She was sitting in an overstuffed armchair when I met her, as I had feared, and the air was thick with a sickly, floral aroma. But the woman herself was soft and kind. Her hair was gray, tied in a very sensible bun. Her eyes were soft blue, roomy, like forget-me-nots. Her hands were knotted too, and her flesh was loose and sagging, but she smiled such a comforting smile it was impossible not to like her. I think she stole my heart the moment I laid eyes on her. Oh my. She rose from her chair with a creaking of her limbs and crossed the carpet to meet me. You must be Miss Tahua. Winifred told me about you. She said she had a pretty little girl about this high, but she didn't do you justice. You're even more charming than I imagined. I wasn't a shy girl, but this praise was so unexpected my face flushed. It's kind of weird how this old lady is probably the one that made her lesbian. Like, look at this. This is how it started. Gilf? Dang, Ronzo. I didn't realize you were a grandma chaser. Grandmommy Milkies? Dang, holy ears. Is it awakening something in you? Not like this. I think I even tried to hide behind my mother's back. My mother, dressed in the smart yet simple regalia of a maid, smiled and pushed me forwards, much like a stage manager encouraging a shy ballerina. Say hello, Taohau. Go on. Hello. Come on, Taohau, that's no way to greet Lady Whittier. You should at least look her in the eye. Being obsessed with manners from an early age, of course I knew that. But I found I simply couldn't. The carpet was far more interesting. I was standing before a real, flesh and blood lady, and I didn't know what to do. The Tahua? My mother's voice became low and warning, but I still couldn't lift my head. All I could do was flounder. I apologize, Lady Whittier. My daughter isn't usually like this. I've never once pegged her as shy. And I wasn't shy. Not really. Shy wasn't the right word. I was overwhelmed. Fortunately, Lady Whittier seemed not to mind my reticence. In fact, it made her chuckle. It's quite alright, dear. Are you sure? She hasn't caused any offense, has she? A sweet young thing like this, hardly. I think I'm going to get on rather well with this girl. She's so very pretty, just like a doll. Her hair is so glossy and black. I tied it up myself. You did an excellent job. Part of me does wonder if at first Lady Whittier saw me as some kind of exotic plaything, an oriental doll. I am sure standing beside my mother, my almond-shaped eyes and curious skin color made me stand out all the more. Winifred Baker and Lee Tahua, the most mismatched mother and daughter you could imagine. If Lady Whittier did see me as nothing more than a living, breathing curio, however, she did not let it show. She continued to smile at me warmer than ever when she realized my discomfort and patted me on the head. I've never liked being patted on the head, and her fingers were curved and claw-like from arthritis, but her grip was gentle and above all else, caring. Considerate. I've never seen eyes like this on a little girl before. They're so small and delicately shaped, and the irises so very green. I think she inherited those eyes from me. Everything else she got from her father. Your husband must be a very attractive man. I'm jealous. Oh, he was, yes. Lady Whittier noticed the past tense and nodded her head, a flash of sympathy spreading across her kindly face. It had been almost a month since we had learned of father's death, but it was still a painful topic to my mother. Too painful to talk about really, especially to her employer. Lady Whittier understood this perfectly, as she was wont to doing, and let the subject go. She knew when her prying was unwanted. Her hand fell from the crown of my head, and I took a few steps backwards. My heart was pounding. Anyway, thank you for allowing me to work here, madam. I will strive to do my best. It is quite alright. You seem like a hard worker, and that's all I really require. As for Miss Taohau, meanwhile... Yes, I apologize for bringing her. I couldn't leave her, you see, and she won't be any trouble. It's quite alright. Don't apologize. I'm glad, in fact. I did so want grandchildren of my own, but my son... Well... Lady Whittier shook her head despondently. She didn't elaborate on the subject, but I learnt in time that her only son, Ambrose, had inherited the same lust for gambling that had plagued his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. He was too preoccupied with throwing large sums of money away to settle down with a wife in holy matrimony. Grandchildren were off the table. Anyway, while you busy yourself about the house, Winifred, I wonder if you wouldn't mind terribly if I had a chat with your daughter. With Tahua? That's right. There are no problems, but... My mother stared at Lady Whittier, her eyes large as though she couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. I couldn't either. A chat? Why would a lady, even a lady who's not particularly wealthy, want to have a chat with me? But there was no way we could disobey her. In fact, though my heart was hammering, my palms were sweating. Damn, I'm spaghetti, bro. Palms sweaty. And I felt sick with nerves. I was almost relieved. I would far rather spend time with Lady Whittier, though chat sounded horribly informal. Work getting in the way of Nico's more important stream, then sit silently in the corridor like a statue. Oh, you're working right now, Saru? That's alright, buddy. You keep working. We're gonna be here. I don't know how long. I would assume at least another hour. Possibly more. We're very close to the end of the game, so I'm hoping to finish it off this stream. And then next week start a new Yuri visual novel. So I don't know what time you finish work, but we'll still be here for some time. And we appreciate having you here. My mother continued to work for Lady Whittier, and I always accompanied her. At first, I worried my presence was something of a burden, but I soon discovered Lady Whittier rather enjoyed our little talks. Lady Whittier, you see, was lonely. This was something I concluded after we had spoken 3 or 4 times. Her husband, Reginald, was dead. He had died relatively young, at the age of 41, alcoholism. He'd loved the bottom of a bottle more than his wife and son, and it had killed him. He got what he deserved. I told him to stop enough times, Lady Whittier told me, but there was nothing gloating about her tone. She was heartbroken, it was obvious. She must have loved her husband. Rake and rustabout that he was, because she still had a painting of him in a locket that she sometimes wore. She kept the painting of him on the wall of her parlor too, where we took tea together. I saw that portrait of Reginald Whittier an innumerable amount of times during my early years. I can still remember what he looks like even to this day, a tall, proud man with thick eyebrows and black hair. He didn't look like the sort of person who would drink and drink and drink until he collapsed on a street corner, but there you are, you can never judge a book by its cover. Reginald had been a rather poor husband, and Lady Whittier's son, Ambrose, seemed determined to follow in his father's footsteps. Lady Whittier had not seen her son for some 20 years. If he had not sent her the occasional letter asking for money, she would not have known whether he was alive or not. You would think, given Ambrose was no longer a child, he would have had more shame, but apparently not. Maybe it was in part Lady Whittier's fault, though I feel ashamed for leveling such an accusation against her. Her kindness, after all, had a monumental effect on me and shaped my life for the better. But it was not the same for Ambrose. Lady Whittier had spoiled her son from the day he was born. Perhaps she had hoped he would one day come to love her for it. Her husband was feckless and unreliable, and who else would she have to dote on in her old age? She couldn't count on Reginald. So Lady Whittier lavished gifts upon her son, and when he grew older, she sent him money without hesitation whenever he demanded it. She thought that was the best way to show her love and affection towards him and earn his in return. She thought if she ensured he wanted for nothing, he would have no choice but to love her. She was wrong. Ambrose took her love for granted, then exploited it. He had no intentions of returning home, and no desire to care for his aged mother. Lady Whittier was left all alone in her large house with nobody save a few servants for company, at least until she met me. I talked to Lady Whittier a great deal, or perhaps it would be more accurate to say that she talked to me. I preferred to listen. The stories she told me were always interesting, and I enjoyed hearing them. She told me about her childhood, and how she met Reginald, and how happy she had been on her wedding day, and how disappointed she had been every day since. She was a cultured woman from a wealthy background, and she told me about the arts too, of plays and opera and the ballet. I especially liked hearing about opera. Big Mom, top tier waifu? Damn. And cultured, Saru. She's got the cultured manga on her bookshelf. Oh, you have a passion for music. How charming. It's rare to find such young girls who enjoy the opera. Well, I frowned, setting my cup of jasmine tea back down on the saucer. The face of Reginald Whittier stared down at me, proud and haughty. This was before he had drunk himself to death. To be honest, I've never been to the opera before. It sounds intriguing, though. Oh my. I apologize, Tahua. I should have thought. Obviously, going to the opera is something of a luxury. I've become so used to our conversations, I almost thought. She didn't say it. She would never say it. But I knew what she was thinking. I almost thought you were like me. But I wasn't. We could never have been equals. We were far apart, not only in age, but in social standing. I sank down into my chair as low as good manners would permit me and looked at my lap. My cheeks turned light pink. Lady Whittier, however, was not to be deterred. She smiled courageously, clapping her ropey old hands together, like a fairy godmother might before granting a wish. Well, we still have to rectify that. Wait, are you talking about... I'm so confused. Are you comparing this old lady to Big Mom? Because that's what I thought originally. But now I'm thinking that you want Big Mom in the Waifu Tier Maker stream on Sunday. Is that your angle? Well, we still have to rectify that. Guidita Pasta is currently starring as Medea in Covent Garden, and I've been meaning to attend for quite some time. There is nothing more rousing than Italian opera, and Medea's story is so tragic. I'm sure you will enjoy it. But I couldn't accompany you, madam. The money alone. Money is no object. I have enough money to be getting on with. Not so much as once I had, but enough, and it doesn't make me happy. Introducing a lovely young girl like you to the world of opera, however, would make me very happy indeed. I always wanted to take my husband and son, but they never appreciated the arts like I do. They said it was fanciful, stuff for women. They didn't give it a chance. They never realized just how passionate it could be. Well, if you're so sure, I wouldn't want to intrude. It's no intrusion. You could never intrude upon me, my dear Tahua. Over the last few months, I have grown very fond of you. And Lady Whittier smiled one of her calm, reassuring smiles, which led me to believe this really was fine, and that the daughter of a housemaid really could go to Covent Garden and watch Guidita Pasta with a noblewoman, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Aw, yeah, dang. So I attended Medea with Lady Whittier and watched as Guidita Pasta threw her all into the role. That of a tormented woman driven mad with love who murdered her own children. I think Medea might have been a bit of an intense opera to submit such a young girl to, but I loved it. Just as Lady Whittier said, it was passionate. It made me think and feel And though I couldn't understand the words because it was all in Italian, it touched something inside my heart. Though the tragic events unfolded on the stage and I knew they weren't real, I felt myself being drawn into it regardless. It must have been because of the music. That was what hooked me. I've been in love with the opera ever since. After Medea, Lady Whittier took me to see plays, concerts, and even the ballet, but there is nothing I remember more fondly than the opera. I met so many colorful characters, and they have all stayed with me ever since. Semiramis, Cenerentola, Tristan and Isolde. I think Tristan and Isolde was actually one that I read for university, and it wasn't that bad. But I am forgetting myself. My mother, as you might expect, was delighted by this development. She was positively giddy at the thought of her little girl going to the opera with Lady Whittier. She would kiss my cheeks, pat me on the head, and say, "I always knew you were a charming girl, and you've certainly worked your magic on Lady Whittier. She loves you. She just wants some company, that's all." Yes, but don't you realize the significance of this? I get to expand my knowledge of the Italian arts? That too, but if she likes you this much, our futures will be secured. I fail to see how. Think about it logically, dear. Her will. What might she leave you in her will? This seemed positively shameless to me, but my mother was just being practical. She wasn't a conniving woman, and neither was she trying to swindle Lady Whittier. This was all down to the machinations of fate, and if fate has sent her a gift horse, my mother saw no reason to look it in the mouth. I can see she was being sensible, but I bristled with indignation at the time. I hated to think that I might somehow be complicit in a scheme to defraud Lady Whittier of her money. Pick young Big Mom, she looks fine. Honestly, I forgot what she looks like. Cause like, you know, the scenes when they show like Big Mom young, I think were shorter than the scenes where they show like young Kaido, for example. I don't know if young Big Mom got that much panel time. But I'll look it up. You might have to just post it in my Discord so I don't forget. Post it in the Discord. If you have the courage. Her husband and son had already bled her dry. I wanted no part in it. So what if she left me anything in her will? I wouldn't accept it. I would refuse. I've always had a lot of pride. That is, until Lady Whittier showed me the violin. It was shortly after we saw Medea together when Lady Whittier, perhaps inspired by a sudden burst of nostalgia, began to tell me a story. When I was younger, around your age, or perhaps a year or so older, I wanted to be a musician myself. I blinked at Lady Whittier over my cup of tea, fingers threaded oh so demurely through the handle. After taking tea with Lady Whittier for so long, I had learned the correct way to hold my utensils, and I was very prim and proper about my manners. I was awfully snobby, despite coming from such a poor family. Did you want to write an opera like Medea? Who, me? Write an opera? Goodness gracious, no, I'm too English. Perhaps you have a point. Lady Whittier sighed, peering at her reflection within her teacup. Composition is not a suitable pastime for women. That's what I was told from an early age. It would cause too much excitement, unbalance the humors. Oh no, I never composed. But you could play. Yes, I did play. My instrument of choice was the violin. Oh, how lovely. Violins are so elegant. I thought so too. I was inspired by a portrait we had in our home of a young girl in a white dress holding a fiddle. The girl in the picture looked so divine I wanted to be like her too. I begged and pleaded my father for a violin of my own in a most unladylike manner. My father was a bit perturbed by my earnestness and, thinking it to be a passing fancy, refused. I was devastated. At some point, however, he must have had a change of heart. After a trip to Italy, he returned home with the most unexpected gift. Your very own violin? That's right, my very own violin. It was a pretty little object made in Cremona. Lady Whittier smiled, perhaps expecting the significance of this would go over my head, and explained further. That is where all the best violins are made. Stradivari himself hailed from Cremona. Though this wasn't a Stradivarius, nevertheless it served me well and made my girlhood very happy indeed. Oh goodness. I, quite forgetting myself, and all flustered with excitement, clasped my hands together. I wanted so badly to see her violin, it was like a physical ache. It hurt. I believe this is the only time in my life I've ever pleaded with anybody else. I couldn't help myself. Do you still have it? Do you? Lady Whittier didn't seem displeased by my questioning. If anything, she was amused. She chuckled, and her face was so joyous she looked 10, no 20 years younger. It made me wonder as I watched her whether she had made a similar expression upon receiving the violin from her father more than half a century ago. As a matter of fact, I still do have it. It's worth a pretty penny now, but I could never sell it. That violin was my dearest friend as a young girl and has been my most steadfast companion throughout my adult life. And do you still play it? Sadly, no. I couldn't do it justice now. Not with these gnarled fingers. I'm sure it would sound beautiful all the same. But Lady Whittier shook her head. Trying to play it now would be a disgrace to the music I used to be able to make. I wouldn't want to taint the memory of my childhood days. I'm sorry. I hung my head, disappointed. I didn't know what to say. And I had so wanted to hear Lady Whittier play her violin too. But that wasn't the end of the matter. In fact, it was only just beginning. However, just because I can't play my violin, that doesn't mean nobody else can. What? I stared, hardly daring to believe for a few moments. I think I quite forgot how to blink. I sat there dumbly, frozen like a doll. Then you don't. That is correct. Why don't you try it, Tahua? But that violin is precious to you. And it will be even more precious if another little girl is able to find joy in it like I did. I hate to think of it being locked away without any purpose, only capable of gathering dust. Instruments are created to be played. And you have such long, lovely fingers. If anybody was made to play a violin, you were. But I have never played before. Then I shall teach you. You really could? Though it has been several years, I remember the basics. And Lady Whittier smiled, the corners of her eyes crumpling. I've always wanted to share my passion with somebody else. Isn't that what love is all about? I didn't say a word. I couldn't. She was right, I think. She had never been more right about anything else. Despite Lady Whittier's words, I was not a natural violinist. In the beginning, the noises I coaxed out of her violin were hideous. They brought to mind not the elegant soaring of a bird on a draft of wind, but of cats screeching and yowling on rooftops. Still, I was not to be deterred, and neither was Lady Whittier. The violin gave us something new to bond over, and we laughed together at my failures and celebrated my minor successes. Over time, my playing became better and better until after a year or so of almost daily lessons, I was able to procure actual music from that violin. Lady has got me tearing up. The old lady got you tearing up. Her kindness has touched your soul, Ronzo. She is a rather sweet old lady, isn't she? I can't tell you how happy I felt when I was first able to complete my first proper piece of music. Corelli's La Folia, if you are interested, without a single mistake. I was so happy I could have cried. In fact, I think Lady Whittier did cry a little bit. Her roomy old eyes beaded with sentimental tears, and she wiped them away with a handkerchief. I pretended that I hadn't seen. I think it might have been embarrassing for her. But I knew how much that violin meant to her, and music too. I could tell, and it warmed my heart. I spent several years with Lady Whittier, coming to her home every day while my mother set about her work. Time passed, the seasons changed, and we grew closer and closer, like a real grandmother and granddaughter. As I grew taller, Lady Whittier complimented me. She said I was growing up to be a very handsome girl indeed. In turn, I made Lady Whittier presents for her birthday each year, a lavender stuffed pillow or a hand-sewn tea cozy. They weren't good presents by any stretch of the imagination, despite my long, slender fingers. I've always been hopeless at sewing, but Lady Whittier delighted in them. She used that pillow every day until well, it happened around the time of my 14th birthday. Lady Whittier fell ill. What the heck? Dante runs Omega $2,800? What's this? Can't tell if it's a bot or not. I'm not sure what it was she suffered from, but it had been a very cold winter. Too cold, perhaps, for her constitution. She had to retire to her bed, and there she lay for several weeks, growing grayer and skinnier. Her body withered away, and even her hair seemed to thin. It was almost as though she was disappearing like mist right before my very eyes. A physician came to tend her, but he had no advice to give other than bracing sea air. Sadly, she was far too ill to go to the seaside. Her maids worried that an attempt to move her would worsen her condition. Maybe also... Yo, Toby! Toby, where have you been, bro? I'd pinged you something in the Discord. I don't know if you ever saw it, but I'm gonna ping you something on Discord right now because I've been holding on for something that I want you to see, and I didn't want it to get buried. I actually have two things to share with you. I don't know if you're on Discord. Are you on Discord, or would you want me to post them in the YouTube chat? I could put them in both. It doesn't really matter. But I got some art that I want you to see, Toby. Some art that I think you'll give a 10 out of 10 to. Oh, I see you are on Discord. That's good. That works. But how have you been, Toby? How's your week going? I know you said you're doing a lot of partying, I think. Bro, I gotta fucking party myself. Alright, Toby, I'm sending you 2 right now. 2 hot and heavies. Whoa, hey, yo. Yes, Stream Sim, I Dante? You pinged me? Yeah, I pinged you 2 right now. And then I pinged you another one, like 2 or 3 days ago, but it's, like, buried now. It's, like, deep. I guess, you know what you could do? In the search bar, you could type your name, Toby, and then you'll see all the posts that, like, have your name in them. And then maybe you could find it that way. I don't know. I don't think you will, because I'm not finding it. But, yeah. I just sent you 2 new ones just now, though, so let me know what you think of them. I also got a ping. What? Why is it telling me I have a ping in the manga channel? Sorry you sent that like a month ago. That's weird. A lot of parties. Last exam done? Hell yeah, dude. Are you gonna watch some Fruit Baskets with me and Ren now that your exams are over? Maybe they also feared, not illogically, because she was really unwell, that the slightest touch would break some crucial component inside her, and she would never recover. I sat by her bedside during this period and held her hand when permitted. Her claw-like fingers had seized up even further, and her nails dug into the backs of my hands so it hurt. She blinked up at me with rheumy eyes, pale blue, perpetually watery, and tried to smile. It looked like even smiling hurt. Tahua, thank you for coming to see me. It's no problem, you don't need to thank me. But I must. I can't imagine spending time with a sickly old lady is fun for a pretty young girl like you. Lady Whittier laughed. It sounded dry and wheezy. You're of the age where you should be courting young men, not whiling your time away with me. Don't say that. Don't be silly. I shook my head. My throat started to convulse. I want to spend time with you. You're important to me. Tahua, you're such a sweet little thing. I apologize. Don't apologize. I'm sure you'll be alright. Yo, first 12 out of 10. Oof. And second is a solid 8. I know the first one is definitely like freaking 12 out of 10. That was the one that I was really excited to show you. I figured the other one is good too, because you know, big Opie and all that. But the first one, bro, I was holding that one for you. That way you could definitely see it, because that's some premium shit right there. Swimsuit bonus? Hell yeah, dude. Swimsuit, Opie, twin tails, brunette, got it all going on, bro. Nice smile, hell yeah. That's what I told her, though I'd never been less sure about anything in my life. Still, I had to try. I could hardly tell her she was going to die. I didn't want her to die, not Lady Whittier. She had grown to mean so much to me over the years, and had done so much for me, and I think it was not only for her sake, but my own, that I tried to convince her of her good health. It's probably just a cold. We'll give it time and it'll go away again, and you'll be right as rain. I tried to sound sure of my diagnosis, but my voice trembled. It was obvious I was scared. I knew that she wasn't going to make it, and Lady Whittier knew too. She smiled at me kindly, the wrinkles at the corners of her mouth folding in on one another, and squeezed my hand. It was almost like she was trying to console me. Thank you, Tahua. I think I feel a touch better now. But that was a lie. Got the Big Mom images up. Let's go. I like how one of them is like a shadow. So you could see the, you know, the shapeliness. Can't believe you give a purple eye cutie to Toby, Wiggle says. Lady Whittier was selfless right until the end. She always put the welfare of others before herself. That was why her husband had seen fit to go out and get drunk every night, and why her son, if I ever meet her son, I swear I'll give him a good talking to, bled her dry of her life savings until she had only sawdust left. She was too selfless. Maybe that was what killed her in the end, though the doctor said it was respiratory problems. She just kept giving and giving and giving until she had nothing left to give. Even in her final moments, she was there for me. She only had one request to make of me during those troubled weeks, fraught with anxiety, while I watched over her and tried to stem my own tears. Tahua, dear, I don't want to impose upon you, but it's fine, you can ask anything of me and I'll do it. It was true, too. She could have told me to bite off the tip of my own tongue and I would have complied in a heartbeat if I thought it might make her better. It wouldn't, of course, but one can always hope. Well then, as you know, I've always loved hearing you play the violin. There's nothing purer in this world than music, and the music you played brought me joy like nothing else. But I'm no professional. There are others, many others, who are far more talented than I am. There are always others more talented than we are, Tahua, but I don't care about that. I like hearing you play because you are you, and you're dear to me. Lady Whittier's withered old fingers impressed themselves softly against the back of my hand, brushing my skin. I shivered. You're like the granddaughter I never had, the granddaughter I always wanted. In fact, you are my beloved granddaughter, and these last few years spent with you have been the happiest years of my life. Please, I just want to hear you play one last time. But Lady Whittier, I never heard her sound so defeated before. Was it a last request? Has she already given in to her fate? I bit my lower lip, the color drained from my face. For a few moments I childishly thought about refusing. If I didn't play, I reasoned, she wouldn't be able to die. She couldn't. Instead, she would hang on, and then she would be able to hear me play as much as she wanted, whenever she wanted, as she sat in the parlor drinking tea on a warm, sunny afternoon. But I knew there was no time for that. She had no time left. The grandfather clock in the corner of her room tickled the seconds away slowly. One less second Lady Whittier had on this earth. The cold was in her bones. It was eating her away from the inside, turning her internal organs into sand. This was all she had left, these last few fleeting moments where she pleaded with me, her honorary granddaughter, to give her some comfort in her final moments. Nobody else had given her anything before. They had been too selfish, more concerned with themselves than this proud noble woman. I knew I had to do it, though my eyes were filled with tears and my chest hurt. I was the only one who could. Alright, I will play for you. Oh, Tahua, my dear child. And her smile was so serene, her eyes so soft, that it almost made this moment of tragedy seem like something beautiful. The final act of an opera. And so I took up my violin and played. My fingers felt strangely cold, despite the warm weather, and I fumbled with the bow a few times, but I tried my best. I had to. I owed Lady Whittier that much, after everything she had done for me. Her home had been my home away from home, and she had been just as dear to me as any relative. In fact, I think I was even closer with her than I was my own mother. I tried to pour all my feelings into my playing, clumsy though it was. I just wanted to let her know how much she meant to me in her final dying moments, how much I loved her. How much I hoped, though I knew it was probably futile, that she would get better, that she would survive. I needed her after all. I think I needed her even more than she needed me. I hadn't realized how lonely my life had been until she came into it. And now she was going to leave. Exit stage right. I think while I was playing the violin, tears started to come to my eyes. I couldn't help myself, but still I continued to play. I tried to play one of Lady Whittier's favorite, more complex violin pieces. Paganini's 20th Caprice in D major. Lady Whittier died that night. I didn't find out until the next morning when I went to Lady Whittier's home with my mother. I think I had known, though, even as I walked across the cobblestone streets with my mother, that this would be it. The end. I would never see her again. It was a cold morning, perfectly suited for my morose mood. The streets were thick with fog, and though the lamps flickered, the light could not quite penetrate through the gloom. It almost felt as I walked alongside my mother that I were traversing the bottom of an ocean. The people we passed in their thick coats and mufflers did not seem to be other human beings but fish. The maids let me into Lady Whittier's room because they knew how close we had been, and there I saw her, still and lifeless but strangely peaceful. I know it's a cliche, but she could have been asleep. I wished dearly that she was. I half allowed myself to believe if I could have taken her violin and played her favorite song, she would have sat up in bed and smiled at me. But that was not to be. I was 14, much too old for such fancies. When people die, they have a depressing tendency to remain dead. It's scientifically proven. Not even galvanized frogs truly return from the grave. Their twitching is simply a result of the electricity running through their bodies. Lady Whittier did not stir even when I held her hand for the last time, now completely cool, and pressed a kiss against her withered old cheek. So Lady Whittier was dead, and my mother was once more out of a job, and I was horribly, dreadfully lonely. I felt like a real physical ache. It felt like a real physical ache, as though there was a thorn buried inside my chest. No matter what I did, I couldn't get it out. There was, however, one small consolation. Lady Whittier left me her violin. She included me in her will, though I wasn't a blood relation, and no true granddaughter of hers. Our lack of familial ties did not lessen her affections towards me. I was her dear Tahua, her peach blossom, who had afforded her so much happiness in her old age, and though she had little money left, what money she did have went to her son Ambrose. She could at least bequeath me with her most cherished possession, the delightful violin her father had bought in Cremona all those years ago. And that was not the only thing. Lady Whittier also wrote me a letter. Her handwriting was faint and spidery, as her hands had frozen with sickness and old age combined, but I could read it regardless. She knew my mother and I would be in need of money, and if I felt it necessary, I could sell her violin. It has a great deal of sentimental worth to me, but I suppose that will no longer matter when I am dead and gone. Sell it if you must. You should fetch a pretty penny for it, and you and your mother should no longer need to worry about monetary concerns. But there was more. I've also been making arrangements for you during the past few months. I knew my end was approaching, and I wished to ensure you were cared for as best I could. I do not have too many connections. My dearly departed husband was better at making enemies than friends, but I have a passing familiarity with the Leonard family of Shropshire. Louisa Leonard and I are related. She is my niece, and I believe she has been looking for a parlor maid for quite some time. Unfortunately, or fortunately perhaps, she is also rather picky, and the process has been taking a long time. Sniff, why your stream has to be so sad? Where's the Yuri? Bro, it'll be back soon, bro. I told Louisa I had met with the most extraordinary young girl of grace and dignity most suited for the role, and she seemed interested in making your acquaintance. If you are in need of a job, I'm sure Louisa would be only too happy to accommodate you. The wages would be higher than that of a mere scullery maid, and you would have room and board. Louisa has always been a touch obsessed with the exotic, shall we say, and I imagine she will like you, being so pretty and unusual. I fear she will see you as something mildly diverting, rather than the intelligent young woman that you are, but it would not be too taxing a job. In any event, you should do what you think is best. I want to see you flourish in the future, my little peach blossom. You have done so much for me, in your own way, though you may not realize it, and I just want to return the favor. She was always trying to return favors, Lady Whittier, even until the end. Even though, as I wish I could have told her, but never had the chance, I was the one who should have been thanking her. I really did love her. I loved her so dearly, and I never got a chance to tell her. Taohau fell silent, her head bowed. Lorena took this as a sign that the older woman had finished. Taohau's eyes looked a touch less vibrant than per usual, muted, perhaps, with unshed tears, and she was staring at the top of Lorena's head dumbly, brow furrowed. She looked so troubled, so vulnerable, so exposed, that Lorena was tempted to pull her close and kiss her. She was too beautiful not to. But Lorena couldn't. Cowed by Taohau's unexpected honesty and the raw emotion in her voice when she had recounted her tale, all Lorena could do was regard her anxiously. She frowned. Tahua, are you alright? This question seemed to be enough to bring Taohau back to her senses, which had momentarily taken leave of her. She smiled, a wavering, watery smile, and gave a brief nod. Thank you for your concern, my little Lori, but I'm fine. You don't look very fine. And that is a very rude thing to say to a lady such as I, Lorena Wow. Tahua gave Lorena a prod in the side with her finger. Lorena squeaked obligingly. The younger maid's eyes widened with shock, for she hadn't expected the sudden attack after so sentimental an interlude, and Taohau began to giggle. Why did you do that? Because the atmosphere was growing rather heavy, and I don't want to cry. It would be unseemly. You have seen me in much much more unseemly positions. It's only fair I should get to watch you shed 1 or 2 tears. Oh my, I didn't realize you were a fellow follower of Desaad. Who? Don't worry your pretty little head about it, dear. You know, it's really annoying when you talk like that. I know it is, but you love me all the same. I wish I didn't. I'm sorry, my little Lori, but I'm far too wonderful not to love. Lorena pouted. You don't need to put up an act all the time. You can open up to me. If you want, I'll be here for you. Isn't that what being in an, Lorena's face reddened. Merely saying the word was embarrassing. But it sent a tremor of undisturbed, unblemished happiness rippling through her body, like the likes of which she had never felt before. In a relationship is all about? Lorena finished somewhat shyly. Taohau observed her cute companion with her soft skin and dewy eyes and smiled. She couldn't help herself. Oh, my little Lori, you are perfect. I'm really not at all. I have a terrible temper, but I'm bad at letting it out. I don't always say what I really think, and I'm clumsy and awkward and get upset easily. That just means you're passionate. I like that. It's attractive. Tahua, I really am glad you told me. That you trust me. Of course I trust you, my little Lori. I like you rather a lot. Good, let's keep liking each other, please. Of course, pet. It's a deal. A binding contract? Mephistopheles himself could do no worse. Mephistopheles? Close enough. Tahua kissed the top of Lorena's head and cuddled her close. The sound of Tahua's heartbeat fluttered inside the shell of Lorena's ear. Perhaps it was this kiss that prompted Lorena's yawn. Sleepy? A bit. I had quite a stressful evening. I can only imagine. Well, you won't need to worry about that for much longer, my little Lori. I'll take care of you. I have the means. Yes, but after everything you said, can you really sell your violin? It must mean so much to you. And Lady Whittier, too. It does, but I think Lady Whittier, no Pamela, would prefer it this way. She told me in that letter that she wanted me to be happy. And I haven't been truly happy for almost 15 years. You've worked here for that long? The money is good, and I want for nothing, even if Lady Constance is a royal pain in the posterior. Then you really are old. You're a good deal older than me. How rude. You shouldn't talk that way about a lady's age. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just... Tahua. Yes, my little Lori? I didn't realize you were so ancient. Damn, bro. I'm not even in my 30s. And I'm not yet in my 20s. So, for those of you who need the math, Lorena is 19, I believe, and it sounds like Tahua is now 29. Because she was 14 when Lady Whittier died. She hasn't been happy in 15 years. 14 plus 15, 29. So they're 10 years apart in age. Old age comes to us all. And it came to you far, far quicker than it did for me. Right, that does it. Taohau began to prod and pinch at Lorena even more mercilessly. Her fingers skittered like spiders' legs against Lorena's neck, beneath her armpits against her sides. No, get off me, stop it. Lorena glared, Taohau giggled. The two women stared at one another, their bodies pressed flush together and their legs tangled, before finally Lorena caved in. She started to smile too. How could she help herself when she was so very foolishly, ridiculously in love? I couldn't sell Lady Whittier's violin before. I was trying too hard to cling on to the past, and my memories of her were the only things that made me happy. I thought if I could keep her most cherished possessions safe, I could keep being happy, and I would make her happy too, but I was wrong. Lorena raised an eyebrow. How rare. Indeed, it doesn't happen often, but in this case, Lady Whittier is already dead. She did a lot for me, and I loved her dearly. I still do, in fact, but I can't make a dead woman happy no matter how I try to honor her memory. It isn't possible. I think it would be far, far better if I started to live for myself. A life with you in it, I think, would be the best life of all. So, Lori, my little Lori, what do you think? Would you accompany me into the great unknown? Tiredness had settled upon Lorena once more. Her limbs felt dull and heavy. Merely trying to blink seemed to expend too much energy, and she yawned yet again, her eyes beaded with tears. And where's that then? Well, if you want... Well, if I want to take you to the opera, it would probably be London. I've never been before. I'm rather fond of it. I did grow up in London, after all. Another yawn. It's all so soon, but, well, I'm not entirely sure what love involves, but I think I might, love you quite a lot. And I want to stay by your side no matter what, so I want to go with you. I want to stay with you, always. Oh, Lori, my Lori, I want to stay with you too, always. So saying, Taohau brought her fingers up beneath Lorena's chin. And pressed her lips, soft but firm, against those of her dear, beloved little Lori. The following morning found Lorena in the servants' quarters. This had been her home for the last half a year, but no more. She was going to leave. She would leave with Tahua on a brand new adventure. It was very early. Lorena, tired and groggy though she was, had slipped out of Tahoa's tender embrace at 5 o'clock to pad soft and silent along the darkened hallway and into her lodgings. The young maid gathered her belongings slowly and carefully, willing the floorboards not to creak beneath her. Lorena didn't want the other maids to awake and learn what she was doing, least of all Pauline. Facing off against the older maid one last time may have been somewhat satisfying, but Lorena had no interest in such a dramatic farewell. She'd had quite enough of Bly. All she wanted to do was slip away like the ghost Ada had spoken of so fearfully. Lorena didn't have many items to pack. She had precious few possessions to her name, save the clothes on her back. It took roughly 3 minutes for Lorena to gather up the meager belongings she had amassed over the years. A hairbrush, a few pairs of socks, her scratchy nightgown, a copy of Robinson Crusoe, and that was all. The other maids remained sound asleep for the whole while. Pauline was curled up on herself, snoring softly in her sleep, with her eyes closed, dark lashes matted together, and her face smooth free of wrinkles. She looked younger than usual, more approachable. Isabel, too, seemed less austere, with her blonde hair let loose. It curled about her face, framing it sweetly. Effie lay still and flat like a board. She was so unnaturally still and silent, she rather resembled a corpse. Lieselot, meanwhile, seemed to be dreaming of her beloved Swiss Alps. She mumbled under her breath every once in a while. Oh, Andermatt, I have missed you so. Every time she mumbled, Lorena's shoulders tensed, but she didn't awake. Lorena straightened up and wiped her palms on her skirt. She picked up her battered carpet bag and turned, ready to make her stealthy retreat, but she paused. Something made her halt. She couldn't leave like this, could she? It was true she hadn't liked Isabel and Pauline, but the other maids were personable enough. Lieselot had tried to be kind in her own strange Swiss way. Effie was supportive, albeit a touch too aggressively. And as for Ada, her precious friend Ada... Lori? Ah... Lorena exhaled softly. The young maid with the round, moon-shaped face was sitting on the edge of her bed, her hair tied into 2 stubby braids, was a little amused, and her eyes were bleary from lack of sleep. To Lorena's surprise, Ada had managed to attire herself in her maid's uniform despite her half-asleep state. The uniform was crumpled here and there, but Lorena was impressed that Ada's flagging fingers had managed to do up the buttons. Is it morning already? It's not. You can sleep a little longer. But I already got dressed. I was so worried I was late. Ada stifled a yawn. Well, if it isn't the time to get up, why are you already awake? I'm packing. Packing? What for? I'm going on a journey. Oh, right. Ada nodded slowly. She was so tinged with sleep, perhaps she did not fully understand the implications of the ratty carpet bag, or the drawer by Lorena's bedside which had been left slightly ajar. Is Lady Leonard sending you out on some errand? Lorena shook her head. As she did, she felt invisible fingers gripping her heart. She'd never been very good at saying goodbye. It had been the same 3 years ago, when she'd glanced at her family over her shoulder before setting out into the big wide world. This has nothing to do with Lady Leonard. Ada yawned, rubbing her eyes with the back of her hands. But if you go out without her permission, she'll be mad at you. Let her be mad. It doesn't matter to me, not anymore. Why not? Ada frowned. She blinked. And then, oh, Lori, you're not going away, are you? Shh. Lorena pressed her index fingers against her lips, signaling silence, but it was too late. Lieselot snuffled in her sleep. She blinked, and then she sat up, disturbing the covers about her body. When she moved, her long blonde hair moved with her. It It was so long it coiled on the wooden floor by her bedside like a corn snake. Ah, it is so early. Why are you awake, Lorena? I'm going somewhere. At this time? Liselot's eyes widened. I have not overslept, have I? No, it's fine. Go back to sleep. I cannot possibly. The game's afoot. Sophie was awake too. How long had she been lying there privy to this conversation? Perhaps she had been awake the whole while and had only been pretending to sleep. Sometimes Lorena did wonder about that maid. Lorena? Ada peered at Lorena in the dark, her hands clasped together at her front. What is going on? Well... Lorena bit her lower lip. I'm leaving Bly and I'm not coming back. Oh, really? It was Pauline. It seemed the conversation had awoken her too. The older maid was sitting up in bed, the covers bunched up about her legs. Though it was dark, Lorena could see the characteristic smirk on her cruel face. Have you finally been fired for gross misconduct? It was only a matter of time. Lorena scowled, drawing herself up to her full height. And she had so wanted to avoid a confrontation too. So much for that. No, I have not been fired, actually. Then where are you going? There's nowhere for you to go unless you intend to take refuge in the poorhouse. Oh yes, that would be funny. If you think you have it bad here, Lorena, wait until you go there. They'll work you to the bone. Why? Do you have much experience with the poorhouse, Pauline? No, we're the ones who are asking questions. I have no reason to answer them. Maybe not, but Lorena... Ada looked at Lorena imploringly. Her eyes were big and bright. We're friends, aren't we? Oh, of course you are, Ada. You're one of my best friends here. Then why are you trying to leave without telling me? I thought it would make you sad. It would make me sadder if I woke to find you were gone. That is correct. I would worry the ghosts had snatched you away in the night. Are we talking about that nonsense again? There are no ghosts at Bly, but there is a devious, underhanded maid who refuses to tell us the truth. I'm not a maid, not anymore. Then what will you do with yourself? You don't have any real talent, and I doubt you'd be able to find another job in service after walking away from Bly. Assuming, of course, you're telling the truth and you haven't been dismissed in disgrace. You can believe what you want, but I really am going. I've had enough, and as for where I'm going exactly, so long as I'm with Tahua, that's more than enough. Tahua? That parlor maid? How preposterous. It's true, we're leaving together. But two women can't strike out on their own? It's unthinkable. I knew it. Effie smiled to herself in her typically muted Effie-like manner and nodded her head. So, is that what your heart told you? I guess so. Oh, Lorena, I'm so happy for you. When are you going to get married? Lorena's cheeks flushed. I don't think that will ever happen. Maybe one day. Oh, Lori. Ada sniffled. I am glad you were able to talk things through with Tahua, but... Is this it? Are you really just leaving? Ada. Lorena winced, the fingers ensnaring her heart squeezed a touch tighter. I'm sorry, I should have told you. Only it's so sudden, I just found out myself. Did you really hate it here that much, Lori? There were a great many things I disliked. Lorena shot a pointed glare at Paulina and Isabel. But I didn't hate it. Not all the time. You made things more bearable. You and Liselot and even Effie. A pause. But I have to strike out on my own. The world is a big place and there's more I want to do and see. I don't want to wither away in Bly. I don't want to stay here, but... Ada, I really will miss you. Oh, Lori, I'll miss you too. I'll miss you so much. And, with a pained wail, Ada rose from her bed and flung her arms tightly around Lorena's neck. She was soft, warm, and smelled like home. Her plain brown braids tickled Lorena's cheek, but Lorena found she did not care all that much. In fact, she rather liked it. You silly girl. If you get upset, then you'll make me feel upset too. Lorena sniffled. Already, she could feel a lump forming in her throat. She swallowed it down stubbornly. Lorena had always had a stubborn streak to her and let her arms wrap about Ada's waist. I'm sorry. You're always apologizing. Because I'm silly, like you said, and I know I'm emotional. I don't want to annoy you, but... This is all so sudden. I don't know what I'll do without you. Ada, you're stronger than you think. I am? Yes, you gave me strength when I needed it. I'm sorry I have to leave you like this. I really am sorry. Not wanting Ada, or indeed any of the other maids, to see her distress, Lorena buried her head against the older maid's shoulder. Her eyes beaded with tears. Was she crying? All of a sudden, the finality of their situation hit Lorena. This would be the last time she could ever cling to Ada for warmth, or smell her soft, slightly doughy smell. It would be the last time she'd ever see Ada, and Effie, and Liselot. There was no going back. This really was goodbye. When Lorena finally made it to the gates of Bly, the sun had already risen. The sky was a bright blue, almost aquamarine, and dotted here and there with fluffy white clouds. Birds, mostly wrens and chaffinches, trilled and twittered amongst themselves from the tree branches. Lorena could see them flitting to and fro, flecks of color darting amongst the foliage. There was a gentle breeze. It tugged at the hem of Lorena's skirts, making them billow and flutter about her legs like the sails of a ship. It must have been 6:30 in the morning. The maids of Bly would already be awake by this hour, attending to their daily chores. Lady Constance and Lady Leonard, meanwhile, would still be asleep, snug and cozy in their four-poster beds like hot cross buns tucked away in the oven. What of Lady Constance? How would the irascible madam react when she learnt, with a jolt, that her favorite plaything had managed to escape? But Lorena would not think of that now. She had no sympathy to spare for that young girl, not after she had put Lorena through such misery. When Taohau spotted the young maid, crossing the dirt track lined with the trees, she smiled and waved. Lorena hurried over, panting from the exertion. The wind tugged at her skirts all the more, as though attempting to hinder her. But Lorena would not allow herself to linger, not for anyone. "You're late, my little Lori. I'm sorry, I got a bit waylaid." "Saying tearful goodbyes? Maybe." "Oh, I am jealous. At least you have a handful of people to say goodbye to, unlike my good self." But Taohau did not sound particularly vexed. She smiled gently and ruffled the top of Lorena's head, disturbing her hair. If it had been a month or so prior, Lorena would have snapped at her. Now the young maid found she rather enjoyed the attention. Taohau's touch was warm, though in a different way to Ada's, and Lorena could not get enough of it. "Do you have all your belongings?" "They're in this bag." Taohau peered at Lorena's carpet bag, her fingers between her chin. She frowned. "It's rather small. Are you sure that's everything? I don't have many possessions to bring." "Ah, well, I intend to change that after I sell this old thing." Taohau gestured towards her violin case held in her right hand. Lorena's eyes softened. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" "Quite sure." "But Lady Whittier..." "Goodness, don't try to talk me out of this now, Lori. We came to an agreement, didn't we?" I suppose so. The violin is important to me, and so is Lady Whittier, but I hardly need to lug this around with me to remind me of her. Her memories will remain all the same inside my heart." Taohau pulled a face. "Though, that sounds awfully cliched. You're becoming sentimental in your old age." "I hope not." "You must be, or you wouldn't have asked to run away with me." Lorena looked back at Bly. The large house was so far away, tucked behind an avenue of trees and a long, sprawling garden, it was almost impossible to see. She could still remember standing outside these gates just gone midnight as her carriage slowly lumbered away into the gloom. The stars overhead had been cold and hard, completely uncaring about the young girl's plight. That had been 6 months ago, half a year. Once Bly had been an unknown, hidden at the end of this winding walkway. It had been Lorena's future. Now it was part of her past. Bly and Lady Leonard and Lady Constance and Miss Smith and Mr. Lester and Joe the gardener and Ada and Effie and Lisa and Paulina and Isabel. Soon they would become nothing more than memories. It was a sobering thought, but life went on as always. So long as Lena and Taohau had Taohau, she would be fine. She was sure of that. It really is a big change, though. Do you regret it? No. Lena shook her head. The wind caught in her hair, making it flutter about her face. The sunlight warmed the top of her head. It seemed to light up her cheeks too, dyeing them a soft, gentle pink, just like primroses poking out of the earth upon the advent of spring. "I want to go with you, and I want to stay with you." "Always?" "That's right." Lena smiled and linked her fingers together with Taohua's. Always. Alrighty then. That's the conclusion. So I'm gonna get another Yuri visual novel for future streams, and I'll try to keep streaming again on Fridays. But if you guys see me miss a Friday, then I'll end up doing it on Sunday instead, like I did last weekend. Because some Fridays I end up like hanging out with friends or something, and then Sundays are usually the days where I'm not doing anything at all. But Fridays and Saturdays can sometimes be busy, and then I'm working Monday through Thursday with the summer school thing, so Monday through Saturdays can be kind of busy. But I'll get another Yuri visual novel so we can continue our Yuri streams, and you know, Yuri is like the theme of this YouTube channel, so I want to keep that going. Stick to the brand. I gotta say, if they had a spin-off of this game starring Lady Constance, I would play it, because I thought she was gonna get character development and she never got it. We just saw her like sick and then being a little brat, and that was the last we saw of her. And it's kind of like feels bad, man. I wanted her to get some character development, but it ain't happening, bro. But yeah, guys, so on Sunday, I'll be streaming again on YouTube. It'll be a waifu tier maker. Toby, if there's any anime waifus that you want to recommend for the Sunday waifu tier makers stream, feel free. I'm going to ping everyone in the Discord for announcement regarding that. That way people who didn't come here and hear about it will know about it. I guess there's an epilogue. Hold on, let me read the epilogue for you guys. But yeah, those are some announcements before we go, since we're wrapping up. Everything they said about London was true. It was truer than anything Lorena had ever dared to dream of. Though the streets were not paved with gold, in actuality they were rather dirty, the atmosphere about the big city, the biggest of all cities, was unparalleled. London was, as Wordsworth had said, the mighty heart at the center of England. There was so much history, one seemed to live and breathe the past. There were spires and towers and domes and temples, all jostling for space along the banks of the Thames. Ships crossed the water, sails unfurled as they brought with them cargo from new and uncharted worlds. Bells chimed every single hour, no matter where you went and no matter where you stood. One could always hear bells, from St. Clement's in East Sheep to St. Dunstan's in Stepney. And then there were all the houses. Nope. The houses were numerous, stretching out in terraced rows, one after the other, and all cramped in together like too many teeth in an overcrowded mouth. The streets were well worn, flattened down from innumerable footsteps of thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people. There were so many people it was almost impossible to count them as one crossed from one side of London Bridge to the other, and what people they were too. The residents of London, whether permanent or temporary, hailed from all walks of life. There were soldiers and chimney sweepers, elegant ladies and painted harlots, fair-skinned English girls and Indian lascars with colorful turbans. In London, even a woman like Tahua with her almond-shaped eyes and exotic skin did not seem so terribly out of place. Though some did stop to cast a cursory glance or two, or indeed 3 or 4, at this rare flower, most were too wrapped up in their own lives and their own concerns to spare her a second glance. Taohau was just part of the crowd, and Lorena was more than happy to accompany her no matter where she went. Though London was a part of England, it felt like it was not part of England. No part of England Lorena had ever been to. The young girl had been brought up in Liverpool, which was a large port in its own right, but it was nothing compared to London. London was so divorced from everything Lorena knew, it almost felt like its own little world. A world where she could be happy with Tahua. Oh, are you alright, my little Lori? Tahua paused. Rarely a sensible thing to do in a heaving London street, and glanced back at her companion. You seem to have slowed quite a bit. Oh, I was just wondering. You should do your wondering elsewhere, or you'll get swept up in the crowd. Yes, I'm sorry. We should probably hurry. If we don't pick up the pace, we'll be late for Medea. But, what is it? I don't know if a girl like me should see Medea at all. And why not? I'm not the most cultured of people. I don't know if I could appreciate it. I mean, I'm the daughter of a milliner and... Oh, hush. Ah. Lorena blinked. Tahua's fingers were curled about her own protectively. Her palm was warm and her touch was gentle. It doesn't matter if you're cultured or not. I'll help you along as best as I can. And if you don't like the opera, we don't need to go again. But you like it. I also like chicken's feet. You don't need to like everything I do. Lorena pulled a face. Chicken's feet? They're a Chinese delicacy. You grew up in London. My father was still Chinese. Oh goodness, your tastes are even stranger than I thought. Is that a problem? No. Lorena smiled softly to herself. The crowds pushed and shoved about her, but Lorena didn't mind. Not while she was with Tahua. Their fingers latticed together tightly. I liked learning more about you. It's an adventure. Like exploring London? Exactly, except you're much, much more interesting. More interesting than one of the old cities in Britain? I am flattered. Tahua smiled coyly. Unfortunately, there's nothing about me that's quite so enticing as Medea. You saw it with Lady Whittier, didn't you? I've always wanted to watch it again. It was a formative experience. More than the chicken feet? Much more. It's what inspired my love for music, and why I learned to play the violin. A pause. And ultimately, it is what led me to you, my little Lori. What do you mean? If I hadn't become so close to Lady Whittier, she wouldn't have curried favor for me with Lady Leonard. I wouldn't have gone to Bly, and I wouldn't have met you. And we wouldn't be here now. Are you glad you're here? I've never been happier. Oh, Tahua. But... There was a small pause. Tahua grinned. I would be happier still, I think, if we could hurry up. I believe the opera will soon commence. Ah, that's right, we should hurry. Then let's go. And with that, the two women began to run. Tahua took the lead, her fingers still linked with Lorena's as they darted through the crowds. Lorena followed, her skirts fluttering around her legs with abandon. They ducked and weaved and went their way through the crowds. Every once in a while, a pedestrian turned to glare at these most uncouth of women, and one gentleman, if he could be called such a thing, even hurled abuse at Taohau's retreating back. But the older woman paid him no heed. Instead, she started to laugh. Lorena did too. She'd never been one to draw attention to herself, but when she was with Tahua, she couldn't help herself. She couldn't help but feel happy. As she ran, people streaming behind her like ships on the Thames, Lorena thought she spotted a familiar face. Two of them. Blonde curls and brown buns, Amelia and her sister Theodora. But Lorena hadn't the time to dally. Medea was due to start in 10 minutes or so, and Taohau was still pulling her along. Well, we know Amelia and Theodora went to London, that's cool. Their shoes struck against the ground as they ran. Lorena's cheeks were flushed pink from exertion, her heart thumping wildly inside her chest. She was beginning to get a stitch in her side. It hurt, yes, but the pain, sharp though it was proof that she was still alive. She was alive, and for the first time, it felt like she was really living. She was living together with Tahua, and was there anything in the world more wonderful than that? If there was, Lorena couldn't conceive of it. She didn't want to. She just wanted this mad, frantic, happy moment to last forever. Maybe if she stayed with Tahua, it really could. Alright guys, so Sunday, Waifu Tier Maker stream, and next week a different Yuri visual novel. Thanks for being here guys, I appreciate having you all here. I might see if anyone's streaming on YouTube and then I can recommend that you guys go there, but... Alright, we got Light and we got Chef, so... I've rated Light before. All of you guys know Light, I'm pretty sure at this point. So, if you guys want to join me, I'm gonna be over in Chef's stream for a little bit. Probably lurking, because, you know, I gotta do other things now. But, yeah, go visit my friend Chef, give him a follow. He's a really cool dude. He just hit affiliate. Congratulate him if you can. Arigato for being here, guys. Have a good evening, night, day, wherever you are. Eat well, sleep well. And I will see you guys again soon. Take it easy.